Hey everyone, welcome back to Tactical Magic. This is Molly Mandelberg, your host, and I'm so excited to have you back for a more business and strategy episode this week. Super excited to talk about content creation and how to maybe do that in a more strategic and fun way. So I'm going to pause for just a second. We'll be right back.
It's not just about mastering technology. It's not just about brand or messaging. It's not just about making more money. It's about showing up in a big way so your people can find you. This is about bringing your most wild and authentic self into the hustle and grind. Welcome to Tactical Magic, a business strategies podcast for the warrior goddess entrepreneur.
Awesome. So today we have the brilliant Lorraine Ball with us today. Lorraine is a marketing strategist, and after spending too many years in corporate America, Lorraine said goodbye to the bureaucracy, glass ceilings, and bad coffee. Today, you can find her teaching small business owners how to use internet marketing tools to grow and become big business owners through her podcast, More Than a Few Words, and the online DigitalToolbox community. Welcome, Lorraine.
Thank you so much for having me. It's so nice to be here.
Yeah, so happy to have you. So tell us a little bit more about your journey to entrepreneurship and to finding out how these internet marketing tools really work.
So it's funny because when I went to grad school, I thought I was going to work in small business. And when I was in school, I was intrigued by the whole idea of corporate branding. And so I did this detour for 15 or 16 years where I held corporate marketing roles and realized somewhere along the way that I just didn't fit, that I moved too fast, that I was willing to take too many risks, that I liked to dance and laugh, and corporate just didn't have a good place for that. And so I started Round Peg about 19 years ago. Initially, we were a traditional marketing company because 19 years ago, that's all you had. And I started hiring interns and young professionals. And I had this young man who worked for me who was like, okay, you need to try Facebook. And I'm like, well, my kids are on Facebook. That's only for college students. And he's like, no, they're opening it up to other people and they're opening it up to businesses. And there's a play here. And so really, because I surrounded myself with people that were in different ages and trying different things, I sort of stumbled around on all of the platforms. And that's kind of been my approach ever since. A new platform opens up and I'm like, okay, let's see how this works. I don't love all of them, but I play everywhere for a little while. And we got good at it. And we started bringing in people who had a real passion for writing and storytelling, and it just fit so well with what we were doing. We hire people because they're curious, because they love to learn, because they share my passion for, okay, how does this work? And because they share my passion for helping other people succeed. And so that's kind of how I ended up where I am.
Awesome. I love that. And would you mind telling us just some of the, people come to the desire or the need for marketing online from a lot of different angles and a lot of different places. What are some of the things to be aware of or the things to know when you're going into the space of marketing yourself online?
So I think the first thing that you have to do is take a deep breath and give yourself permission to not be everywhere. Everybody you meet is going to tell you, you got to be on Twitter. You got to be on Clubhouse. You got to be on LinkedIn. Oh my God, you got to have a TikTok channel. Stop, breathe, and start with two channels. The one that you love the most, the one where you know you're going to spend time, keep going there. And then think about your customer and think about who they are and where they are likely to be. And a good example of that is I work with a lot of younger women who are starting businesses. And if they're in that 18 to 35 range, they're probably on Instagram and they love it and it's great and they enjoy it and they really get it. It makes sense to them. But if their business model is targeting older women, 35 and up, or if they're targeting men, Instagram may not be the best place to reach them. And so you have to look at both of those. Don't let go of what you love. Try to figure out how to play there, but also get yourself in the space and in the headspace of your customers.
Totally. That makes perfect sense. So getting into the headspace of your customers brings us to a really awesome topic, which we were talking about privately before, which is user-generated content. So what does that mean? How does it work? How do we make that work for us?
So it is a very broad term, and you're probably familiar with some of it, even if you've never used that term. The best example is reviews. When you can get other people to write reviews about your product or service, you're leveraging user-generated content. The advantage of a review is that a customer, especially if it's a happy customer, will write about your product or service using their language, not yours, and using words that they might be likely to use if they were searching for a product or a service like yours. So if you can get customers to write reviews on Google, on Facebook, or send you a nice letter that you can post on your own website, number one, that content has great SEO value. But number two, and maybe this should really be number one, it has the benefit of social proof and authenticity. It is someone else talking about you. And the data is amazing. People are more likely to believe a complete stranger when they read a review of a restaurant or a hotel or a destination than they are to believe that business themselves talking about it.
Yeah.
So reviews are a huge part of user-generated content. But there's lots of other
Tell us about some more
as well.
Yeah, we want to hear more.
So one of the other things that you can do when you're trying to cultivate that user-generated content is simply ask questions. And one of my favorite examples, and I don't know if he does it anymore, but Jimmy Fallon used to throw out questions on Twitter. And he'd be like, hey, this is what we're talking about tonight. And he'd ask these silly questions. He'd get a ton of responses. And that night on his show, he would read some of them. And so on the one hand, people would say things that his writers might never have thought of, gave the writers a little bit of a break, but it also really engaged his listeners because now they were following him on Twitter to see what was the question going to be. Would he maybe use their answer? And that's one of the other keys of USG is if you are soliciting that information, you don't have to say thank you and respond individually to every single person, especially if you're getting thousands of responses. But if I see that you acknowledge and thank different people randomly, I'll keep trying. That is, if you studied psychology in college, B.F. Skinner, he proved that if there were two rats and one got a food pellet every time and you stopped giving him food, he would just get bored. And the other rat, if you gave him food sometimes but not other times, that intermittent reinforcement kept him coming back because he kept thinking, next time I'm going to get it.
Yeah.
Human beings operate the same way. So on social media, if your community sees that you are acknowledging people and you're nice, maybe you didn't acknowledge me, but well, tomorrow you might. And so I will continue to play along.
Awesome. Yeah, that's super valuable. And there's so many ways to play that to your advantage. For example, on my other podcast, Reveal the Game of Life, I'm making it a habit to mention anytime somebody leaves us a review or anytime somebody supports the podcast to give them a shout out on the air. I should do that with this show too. I don't know why I don't, but that reinforcement of hearing your name on the air when you're already listening to a show that you like, there's something special about feeling that connection. And that, yeah, it's more incentive for people to go and engage with you outside of the listening to your content when you have that reinforcement. Shout outs are huge. Asking for reviews is huge. I want to highlight what you said about the reviews too, because I don't want people to miss out on that. When people are writing about you and your business, they're using language that they would use, not necessarily the super jargony, poetic language that you would want to use about you. And that verbiage, how they talked about where they were before and where they got to after working with you, that is marketing gold. You could almost pull some of those phrases and the languaging from people's testimonials and put it right onto your sales page, put it right onto your website, because that's the language your people speak. And you know that because that's one of your people was speaking that language.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So it's super potent stuff.
Well, that whole, the testimonials, that authenticity is huge. And I'm going to give you another example of just a great use of user-generated content. There was a movie, The Fault in Our Stars, or The Fault, and the opening credits of not the movie itself, but the preview was this video that sort of scanned over. It looked like a cork board in a teenage girl's room. There were little notes and sketches. Well, how they gathered that information is they put a call out on social media, basically targeting young girls, and said, hey, if you liked the book, send us something that you think would be on the lead character's bulletin board. And so the result, the final content, as you sort of looked at all these pictures, every one of those images was authentic. It was hand-drawn, it was handwritten, it was ripped from a magazine, only the way a 13 or 14-year-old girl would do it. There's no way that the production company or the producers, who were probably mostly men, could ever have gotten inside the heart and the soul of that audience to create that, no matter how good they were at graphic design. It would have always felt a little stock photography-ish.
Yeah.
So one of the other benefits of user-generated content is that authenticity, the ability to create things or share things that touch at the soul of your audience because they feel so real and so genuine.
Yeah. Can you give us an example of how that one would relate back to an entrepreneur?
So again, a couple of examples. One of the ones that I really liked was a company sending out a request asking people for photographs of using their product. So this is more if you have a product rather than a service, because it's harder to demonstrate a service. But with a product, they had a contest, and the best, most creative, Legos did one. And that's, of course, it's a bigger company, but you could use this with your product. Have people take photographs of the product, and you get all these great photos and ideas. We did one with a heating and air conditioning company, and he had done the heating and cooling system for a humane society. So he had this soft spot for pets. So we did the Coolest Pup Contest. You had to send a photograph of your dog if you thought your dog was the coolest dog in the city, and we had a prize that he gave away. Well, anybody could do that. Any business could do that. And we just laughed because we got all these great photographs of dogs and cats, because there were some cat owners who went, wait a minute, my cat is cooler than your dog. They shared them on Facebook, and then we collected them and reshared them. So we also do it with a company that sells beans in glass jars. We ask people to send us their favorite recipe, or we share a recipe and ask people to send photos of their families eating the recipe.
Totally. I'm just coming up with examples in my head as you're talking too. I recently took a mini course from another online marketer that I wanted to geek out on how she was doing her stuff. And in her mini course, which was like $7 or something to purchase, one of the first modules asks people to take a selfie of them taking the course and tag her on Instagram
Mm-hmm.
and for a chance to be featured in front of her huge audience, because she would just take that picture and reshare the story. And those people would feel like they've got exposure now. And in the process, she's showing happy clients, showcasing that they bought her course. So there's a social proof, that testimonial thing aspect to it. And I just had the idea for my own business, how I have like beautiful workbooks and manuals for all of the courses that I teach. And I could just ask people as soon as they print their workbook to take a picture of themselves with the workbook and send it to me, and how much more fun and engaging the sales page for those programs would be with pictures of people holding their workbooks and how much they love them. User generated content. And I could even showcase them and their businesses with that picture on social media saying, isn't this person awesome? And obviously they took my course. Brilliant.
Absolutely. Cool. And so I'm going to give you one suggestion to tag on that a little further.
Yeah.
If they're printing those manuals, instead of having them hold the cover, ask them to take a picture of one of the pages where they completed the exercise. So now you've got their handwriting and their notes. So you've got them in the workbook, and you just kind of, again, show the product being used.
Yeah. I love that.
That's fun. Another way to do it, and this works with some products and services, if you have a product that you know can be used in lots of different ways, or you have a product that maybe you're looking for ideas, running a contest and asking for suggestions. Lay's potato chip does this. They ask people to suggest flavors, and then people vote on it. And, the winning flavor one year was biscuits and gravy. Now, I think a biscuit and gravy potato chip sounds gross.
But I've seen them in the market. They sell.
Yeah. And the woman who got it, she was from, I want to say like South Carolina or something. And they promoted the flavor and they promoted her. But it was a way of, sometimes if you're just, I think, emotionally drained, you're burned out, there are no ideas, the very best thing to do is throw it out there and see if somebody else has an idea. Lay's, they could come up with all their own flavors, but they got to hit a wall. I mean, how many variations of potato chips can you come up with?
Yeah, totally.
And letting other people do the brainstorming for you.
Yeah. Lay's also put out a potato chip bag where it had the bottom half of a funny face on the top of the chip bag. So you could take a picture holding up the bag and look like you had a big beard or something. So you're just like telling people, like inviting people to be silly with the product and showcase it for you. And that's a brilliant marketing ploy campaign.
It is, and I think even more so now than before, people want an excuse to play.
Yeah. And
with technology, there are so many different things that you could do. Invite people to upload funny Zoom backgrounds and take a picture while they're on a Zoom call. I mean, whatever it is, leverage the technology a little bit. Don't be afraid to try things. If your audience doesn't play, okay, back up, try something different. But if you get some people that are willing to work with you on it, you just get amazing content.
Totally. I love that. I also had a friend who teaches intuitive eating. So it's not diet culture, but it's about being more mindful with your body and your consumption, basically. And she just invited all of her past clients, if they wanted to fly out to California for a photo shoot, to be part of her like inner circle community. And surprisingly, so many were willing to come out and do that. And that photo shoot became all of her marketing materials. So it's it doesn't have to look any certain way, and it doesn't have to have any specific outcome in mind, but to start seeing not just how can I engage my audience so that they subscribe to my message and buy my stuff. It's like, how can you engage your audience to be a part of the movement that allows your mission and your message to spread farther organically?
And I think particularly for a lot of the people in your audience that are coaches and consultants and trainers, and they are trying to build a business where they are touching people's lives, I think go ahead and try to touch them. I mean, in other words, sometimes I see people who want to be coaches and consultants, but they put this sort of armor around them because this is my professional and don't cross this line. And the more you can find a way to bring people in, like you said, the woman who invited everybody to come out and be with her and take photographs with her, I think the more that you can make people a part of that community, the more likely others will want to be a part of your community as well.
Totally.
I have another example of a different kind of user-generated content that I also thought was lovely. Now, this kind of required some creative technology, but you could use it just with social media tagging. This was Dove a few years ago. They were running a program that basically said, I think, and what you would do is you'd be on Facebook and it was like, I think my mom, insert her name, is beautiful because, and then you filled it in. Mm-hmm. And so then she got tagged, and what a lovely message from your daughter or your friend. I think my best friend Mary is beautiful because her smile lights up the room when she comes into it. And this is what you would read, and then you would get invited to share the same thing about someone else. And it was kind of this beautiful chain letter. And yes, Dove branding was all over it. But you could do it just as easily by creating a graphic that says, celebrate the women in your life, fill in this sentence, tag them, and then share it, and then encourage them to share it and share it and share it. So leveraging the viral nature of social media to create user-generated content that expands your message, but also is positive so that other people want to be on board and share it as well. I thought the Dove campaign was brilliant.
I love that. That's so, and that's so duplicable and useful in different ways for different industries. Mm-hmm. And to be the one instigating us to acknowledge each other. I love the heart-centeredness of that.
Yeah.
So you help companies to figure this stuff out for themselves and then implement it. Is that right?
Absolutely. For 19 years, I owned an agency, and the company Round Peg is still in business. I consult with them, but mm-hmm. my heart was going back more towards just the training and educating. And so that's when I created the Digital Toolbox. And so you really have both worlds. If you want to do it yourself, or you want to learn the questions that you need to ask to figure out where to go, you can start with the toolbox. If you're like, I'm over it, I just want somebody to help me, then Round Peg can help you there as well. It's kind of a two-sided, but I think for a lot of your audience, I'd love them to check out. It's the digitaltoolbox.club. And I'm going to have a special offer for your listeners.
You are? That's so lovely. Tell us more.
So if they join and if they use the code MM21 in honor of your initials in the year, if they use the code MM21, anyone who uses that code, the price will be, it's not going to be a discount on the price, but what it will do is it will signal me to set up a 15-minute web audit. And so I'll spend 15 minutes with them, give them a list of some tips and tricks to improve their website.
That sounds like a super generous gift. And it sounds like the Digital Toolbox would have a lot of resources for people to get out of their own way so they can start showing up and expanding their business and reaching more people. So thank you so much, Lorraine, for that generous offer. We will give you all the link to that toolbox and that coupon code in the show notes for this episode. Is there anywhere else that you'd like people to come and find you? What's the best way for people to follow you online?
So I am Lorraine Ball just about everywhere. I'm Lorraine Ball on Twitter. I'm Lorraine Ball on Clubhouse. I'm Lorraine Ball on LinkedIn. And they can find my podcast, More Than a Few Words, wherever they listen to podcasts when they're done listening to your show.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Any last words of wisdom you want to leave people with?
I think the biggest thing is not to try to swallow the elephant whole. There is always something new to do. do one or two things well, measure the results. If something you've put your heart into it and it's not panning out, it's okay to say, no, I'm not going to do that anymore. And I'm going to try this instead. But give yourself time to really do a few things well, and everything else will fall in line eventually.
Awesome. Great advice. Thank you so much, Lorraine, for being on the show. And thank you, everyone out there, for listening. If you enjoyed this episode or you know somebody that might really get a lot out of this, please share this with them. You can send it to them in a message, or you can share the link with them. And if you like this show, don't forget to subscribe, like it, rate, review if you haven't already. And that really helps us out with the algorithms a lot. If you want to keep this podcast commercial free and offset some of the costs of making this show, you can go to wildheartsriseup.com/podcast, and you can find a way to support Tactical Magic to continue. But whatever happens, keep asking big questions and taking bold action, because you are here for a reason. Thanks for listening. Bye.